Splitting your game and by proxy your story into sections brings up a need for a transition between acts, so you need some kind of reveal to mull over. You shouldn't underestimate the power of surprise.
Hello there.
You know, I try not to get too invested in video games nowadays. Not because I'm not willing to give them a chance, but because I've been burned before. You spend all this time learning to hate the bad guys and learning to love your allies, only for everything to get jumbled up and for the game to pit you off against someone you spent a large part of the game fighting alongside. Trust no one and live life as some kind of hermit away from society. Then again, Betrayals makes sense and actually flesh out characters a huge amount. As the protagonist, you have your goals, but it's interesting to see that you're not the only one in the game with an agenda. It's not just your story being told here. Worth mentioning that I'll only be considering legitimate betrayals that happen inside video games. No abstract acts of backstabbing like Battletoads betraying its role as a 2D beat-em-up, Konami betraying most of its fanbase, and Keiji Inafune betraying 67,000 backers with Mighty No. 9. Your time will come, I assure you. Ah, the winter of 2009. Good times. I was 14, I think. Hadn't even thought about starting a YouTube channel at that point. Still, video games were still my obsession, and that November, a game by the name of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 had been released and was already whipping up a storm. I wasn't really a part of it, my parents were responsible. But it was the big topic of discussion for 3 reasons. 1, it's actually quite a good game. 2, the no Russian mission and the controversy that came with it was all the publicity that the game needed. And 3, General Shepard just shot everyone. What? There's a scene from the first Modern Warfare game that I talk about quite often on this channel, and it's quite good. That might be the reason why. If it was Liquid, I would just bathe in it 24/7, but the short of it, loads of good people die very quickly, and it badly affects the reputation of one General Shepard. Needless to say, doesn't take it well. As well he shouldn't really, losing tens of thousands of your own men who were serving under your command at the time won't do any good to anyone, but even then, General Shepard starts his own personal crusade to rebuild his reputation, leading him to briefly turn his back on the US, help the bad guys by tipping them off that there's an undercover agent partaking in their terrorist attack, and help trigger World War III. All in trying to make himself out to be some kind of war hero that aided America in its time of need. As soon as the protagonists start digging a bit deeper, Shepard shoots them and burns them to stop the info getting out. I get the motive, but you've got to understand that up until he sticks a bullet in you, there was no indication that he was going behind anyone's back. He's clearly angry that so few people did anything about all the people who died under his command, but the solution he puts into action is a little too broad for him to not come across as a backstabber. Good news is that the replacement protagonists track him down, and even though he's been stabbed in the chest, Soap displays circus-grade knife-throwing skills to nail Shepard in the head. You know, the story's a bit more subtle. More so than KAPOW! Knife shot! Mother, please fetch the camera. Some characters have a harder time of getting their goals realized than others. You know how it is, you set off with the intention of doing one thing and before you know it, you're solving everyone's problems. Literally only came out here to buy some milk and now you're trying to get me to sign up for timeshares in Spain? Fuck you! Where's that semi-skimmed? So yeah, Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles has this problem too. He sets off to enact some revenge on a robot and finds himself embroiled in a war between said robot and all of the humans. Or HOMs if you're going to call me out on not using the proper terminology. But after a fair amount of hardship, negotiations go well and it's just one handshake away from the two races trying to live in harmony. It's around about this point where Shulk gets shot in the back by Dixon and the game rumbles on. This is a betrayal that is both reasonably unexpected and one that's pretty hard to take. Dixon was that no-nonsense, tough love character who gets the best out of Shulk by putting him through his paces. For the longest time it's seen as a means of getting Shulk to a point where he can become the hero that the world needs, but Dixon revealing that he's been working under the great god Zanza to release Zanza from Shulk's body, pretty much reducing his care of Shulk from that of a father figure to raising a pig for slaughter, it's all a bit much. What's worse is that his lust for power is far stronger than the responsibility he feels over Shulk. So while he might early on feel bad for deceiving the party for walking them into a death trap, he fucking relishes it when it actually happens. Not saying that you can't be proud when the plan comes together, but I just wish he wouldn't gloat so much. He's a good actor, that's for sure. I've heard a few people say that Dixon's Betrayal is out of character, but if you were to live amongst the Homs for so long, you would eventually start to like them. He clearly has a job to do, and maybe he was sitting on this persona for so long that once he actually got the job done, it all came out as some kind of taunting relief. Does it make him any less of a dick? No, but the writers foreshadowed that when they named him. You can't escape your name. I'm called William, and I went through school many years with many dick jokes. I'm gonna stage an intervention one day. A lack of companionship results in putting your trust in people who maybe don't deserve it. The isolation in the first Portal game meant that you immediately latched onto the first thing that spoke to you, even if it was a psychotic computer system. Almost sounds like the response of a newborn baby, but you really wouldn't want GLaDOS as some kind of motherly figure. Shouldn't burn babies. If you've seen any form of media where the machines rise up and enslave humanity, GLaDOS showing her true intentions to crush you under the foot of science isn't that surprising. At no point while in the company of Wheatley in the sequel did you ever think that he was capable of doing anything constructive, let alone turning his robotic back on you and becoming the main villain of Portal 2. That would be madness. He can't even tie his shoes. It's because he hasn't got any feelers, so that's for jokes for your laugh. Betrayals pretty much live off the subversion of expectations, but you would have needed some mightily powerful foresight to see Wheatley, fucking Wheatley, taking over from GLaDOS as the head AI of Aperture Science and dumping you and GLaDOS, who's now a potato, down a chute to screw around in old Aperture. Not entirely sure why Wheatley betrays you in the end, but I imagine if you had a bunch of power bestowed on you out of nowhere and you were as simple-minded as Wheatley, you'd be overwhelmed by this sense of grandeur and want to test out your skills on the nearest thing that moves. Though explaining it that way makes shoving you down an elevator shaft and everything else Wheatley does in the game from that point onwards a kind of occupational hazard. What we can take away from this is that if you ever wake up in an underground testing facility, trust no one. They'll only break your heart. The effectiveness of a betrayal increases depending on what kind of game it happens in. Someone not always being on the same side in a Metal Gear game, for example, is hardly surprising. I honestly feel that they make it up on the spot most of the time. But in a more unassuming game, nothing can prepare you. You boot up a Kirby game with certain expectations. You know, you'll be in charge of a pink puffball with an iron stomach who commits horrendous atrocities despite the cheery demeanour. Meta Knight might show up, there'll be some kind of abomination as a final boss. It's all nice and predictable enough for you to soak up the gameplay without a second thought about something more taxing like a storyline. You don't play Kirby games for the story. Who the fuck plays Kirby games for the story? Even more so with 2011's Kirby's Return to Dreamland, since the game comes with 4-player co-op, and you spent half the time bottling your resentment for whoever's playing Kirby. But hidden away beyond all this crap is a story about a creature called Magolor who's crashed his ship and needs Kirby and co to find the scattered ship parts. Once you gather them all, you're taken in a ship to a far-off land to beat up an evil dragon. Whoa, wait. Cookie Country, Raisin Ruins, Onion Ocean, Egg Engines, Dangerous Dinner. The world name spells something. Oh, you son of a bitch! Alright, hands up, who saw this shit coming? Allies becoming villains isn't that surprising, fuck, it's what this video has been all about so far. But you need to understand just how unprepared the player is for Magolor to suddenly become the big bad guy of this game. On the one hand, you can say that it came out of nowhere, and holy shit, it definitely did that. But equally, you can see the foreshadowing present in a lot of important areas in the game. I swear, seeing that the first letters of the world name spell out crowned is one of those rare jaw-dropping moments. Like, it was right in front of you this whole time. And what's more, once Magolor gets into this position, he goes on to become one of the best final boss fights in recent memory. He may have manipulated you with his big yellow eyes and his cutesy mittens, but no one dishes out justice quite like Kirby. Don't even need a giant sword, just fucking eat him. I rebuilt your ship and this is how you repay me? Not gonna end well for you, sunshine. Good betrayals are slow burners. The more time you come to rely on a character, the more devastating it is when they stab you in the back later on. The problem is, this kind of trope is such commonplace that you can see the vast majority of betrayals coming. Any game that's looking for some kind of plot twist to set up the final moments can lead the player down a path that inevitably ends with your perception of your allies being challenged. It is an overused trope sometimes, but I would say it's worth it when one game builds it up in such a way that shakes you to your core. Not many games do that. Going off the theme of isolation I brought up when talking about Portal, finding yourself below the waves and in a city full of whack jobs kind of forces you to cling to anything for safety. The opening couple of minutes of playing Bioshock are deliberately overwhelming. This sort of information overload, both through people telling you stuff and physically seeing all this city that you'll be exploring. What a lot of games would do is give you a chippy exposition fairy to follow you around and make sure you're going in the right direction. Bioshock does this too, but implements it in a way that doesn't clash with the game's thematics. Does mean that I've just compared Atlas with Navi, but, you know, they're not that different. So Atlas and his sweet Irish accent go about their business of leading you down a path that will eventually end with the death of Andrew Ryan and the uprising of the lower classes of Rapture. But hang on, apart from the fact that splicers are kinda scary, why are you picking sides? Because you never had a choice, that's why. Everything you've done in the game, right up to golf clubbing the shit out of Andrew Ryan, was all controlled by the hypnotic trigger, "Would you kindly?" Words that just so happen to sound pretty incredible in an Irish accent.
Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
Not only were you led down a path against your will, you were being directed by someone who isn't even a liberator. Not only did Atlas betray you, but he isn't even Atlas. Going by Frank Fontaine instead, he wanted to dispose of Andrew Ryan to seize his power. Betraying the player is one thing, but manipulating them to achieve your own goals and then betraying them, that's some potent stuff. Hearing his smooth Irish accent replaced by a New York accent, that's maybe the worst part of all. This is RabbidLuigi, and you can separate betrayals by how unexpected they were and how the betrayal comes about, and simply put, you show me one person who saw this twist coming, and I will show you a liar. This is a plot twist so brilliantly crafted that replaying the game again with this knowledge feels bizarre. With the Bioshock collection coming out soon, this is a game you should play. Would you kindly? Got a topic that you'd like me to discuss in a countdown? Leave a suggestion in a comment below and head over to my Twitter, where I'll be holding a vote to decide the subject of the next countdown based off the best of your submissions. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. Gonna be interesting to see if I'll have enough time next week to make a top 5. I've been able to make them weekly since February, but over the next 7 days I'm rehearsing and performing in an orchestra for the local showing of Oliver the Musical. I'll keep you posted. But in the meantime, I have a Patreon where I've been posting video tutorials. Recently made one on the problems I found when recording myself on camera. Mainly cats sleeping on the back of the sofa and hogging all the attention. Could be worse.